Nobody should marry under a sky that feels watched. Dagon's first thought, which proved he was still the sort of man who believed thoughts arrived in useful order. Jerusalem had been holding its breath all day. Cities do not know how to be quiet. The festival had pulled too many bodies inside the walls, and every body brought a private version of God that did not always fit comfortably beside the next man's. Dagon had spent the morning counting exits. He had spent the afternoon pretending he was not. Mara knew. Of course she knew. Mara could hear a man plan escape in the way he set down a cup. She said nothing because silence was one of the few mercies she gave without making him pay attention to it. The room belonged to people who understood risk as furniture. Everything useful had a second purpose. Mara moved through it as if rooms had always been built for her hands. Dagon stood near the wall holding nothing, which made him feel more exposed than if he had been holding a knife. "If you are going to look dangerous," Mara said, "carry this." She put a bowl into his hands, olives. He looked at them. "This is not a weapon. Then try not to threaten anyone with it. You underestimate me. Constantly. It keeps you modest." He carried the bowl because arguing with Mara in a working room was like arguing with weather while standing in the rain. The room needed things, and she had made him one of them. That was how she won most battles, not by defeating him, but by assigning him a use before he could become a problem. Jesus was not yet in the room. His absence had weight. Dagon hated that too. Men should not be able to weigh on rooms they had not entered. But Jesus had been doing that for days now, since the tables, since the city began whispering his name with two mouths, one hungry and one afraid, since the men who watched from edges had stopped pretending they were only curious. Mara took the bowl from him and set it near the bread. "You are thinking loudly. I am standing quietly. Your quiet has corners. This city has corners." She did not answer immediately. That was new. When Mara paused, it meant truth had arrived with bad timing. "We may need to leave soon," she said. Dagon looked toward the door. "I know, not run. That is a decorative word for leaving quickly. No, running is when fear chooses the road. Leaving is when wisdom does. You practice these sayings. Only on men who need them simplified." He almost smiled. Then the street outside shifted, not loud, worse. A group of men passing with purpose, sandals striking stone in agreement. Conversation in the room lowered itself without being told. Dagon set one hand against the wall. Mara saw. "Not yet," she said. "You do not know that, neither do you." The cruel thing about waiting in danger, cowards and prophets used the same evidence until the door opened. Jesus entered with two others. The room changed and tried to pretend it had not. He looked tired. It was the first thing Dagon noticed, and it frightened him more than any sign would have. Jesus had been angry, amused, quiet, sharp, tender, impossible, ordinary. Tired was worse. Tired belonged to bodies. Tired could be killed. He greeted the room softly. People moved toward him, then stopped themselves, as if everyone had learned the same lesson at once. Do not crowd the man everyone needs. Jesus saw Dagon by the wall, then Mara near the table. Then the space between them. Dagon did not like that look. "No," he said. Mara turned. "No what?" "Whatever he is about to do." Jesus' mouth moved, not quite a smile. That made it worse. "You are improving," Jesus said. "You now refuse before being asked. Efficiency. Fear often calls itself that." Dagon looked at Mara. "You see, this is why rooms become dangerous around him." Mara's eyes stayed on Jesus. They were dangerous before he entered. That was true. It did not help. Jesus stepped closer, not to the center of the room, but to the table edge where bread had been covered and lamps made light out of oil someone had remembered to buy before crisis made memory expensive. "There is something unfinished here," he said. Dagon felt his body prepare several escapes at once. Mara went very still. Her stillness was not fear, not only fear. It was the stillness of a woman who had seen a lamp nearly go out and had both hands occupied. Jesus looked at her first. Mara. Her name in his mouth did not sound owned, it sounded returned. "You have kept many rooms," she swallowed. Dagon hated him for seeing that. Then Jesus looked at Dagon. "And you have kept many exits. Someone should, yes." That yes disarmed him more than correction would have. Jesus reached for the covered bread, then stopped before touching it. Instead, he placed one hand flat on the table. "A room needs both," he said. "A kept light and a known way out." Mara looked at Dagon then, not softly, clearly, her danger. She did not make him better by pretending he was already good. She made him harder to lie about. Jesus said, "Have you chosen?" Dagon's heart struck once hard. "Chosen what?" Mara closed her eyes, not in embarrassment, in recognition. Of course, she knew before him. Women always reached the dangerous truth first and then had to wait while men assembled enough pride to call it discovery. Jesus waited. Dagon looked from him to Mara, to the table, to the door. "This is a bad time," he said. Jesus nodded. "Yes, that is your answer. It is a bad time. Then why ask? Because love is often asked for by bad times." Dagon hated that sentence immediately. He hated its shape, its patience, its refusal to become sentimental. He hated that it felt less like invitation than fact. Mara spoke before he could damage the room. "I did not ask you for this." Jesus turned to her. "No, I did not ask him. No, I have work. Yes, people need this house. Yes, he leaves." Dagon flinched as if she had struck him. Mara saw, her face changed, but she did not take the words back. That was one reason he trusted her. She did not rescue him from truths just because they cut him. Jesus looked at Dagon. "Do you?" The room disappeared badly. All of it became surface. Underneath was a road, always a road. He wanted to say yes, because yes would be easier. Instead, he said nothing. Jesus did not help, irritating and merciful. Mara's hands were folded in front of her. Her fingers pressed into one another hard enough to whiten the knuckles. Dagon looked at those hands. He had seen them carry water, bread, oil, cloth, fever, fear. He had seen those hands steady Hannah, trim lamps, cover hidden food, push him toward usefulness, open doors no man had courage to open gently. Hands like that deserved better than a roadman who had made a life out of leaving before being named. "I know roads," he said. Mara's face did not move. I know when to run. I know how to sleep with one eye open. I know, I am not safe. No." He laughed once without humor. "You could disagree. I could lie." Jesus' eyes lowered for a moment, and Dagon had the insane thought that he was pleased. Mara stepped closer. "I am not asking for safe," she said. "Then you are a fool. Often not here. What are you asking for?" She looked at him for a long moment. When she answered, the room became too quiet. "Return." Dagon had no defense for that word. Return was not stay. Return left space for danger and duty and roads that had to be taken. Return meant if the world pulled him away, he would know where his name belonged. His throat closed. "I do not know how." Mara's eyes softened then, but only enough to hurt. "Neither do I." Jesus reached out one hand, not commanding, offering the shape of what came next. Dagon stared at it. He had taken water from that hand, bread indirectly, correction, jokes, ruin, mercy. More than any sensible man should take from someone he still insisted he did not follow properly. He placed his hand in Jesus' hand. Mara placed hers over his. The room exhaled. Someone near the back began to cry quietly. Dagon decided not to find out who in case it was him. Jesus held their joined hands between his. "This is not shelter from sorrow," he said. "It is not a bargain with God against loss." "Then what is it?" Dagon asked. "Witness. You will see one another when fear asks you to look away. You will return as you are able, and when you cannot return, you will tell the truth about the road." Dagon's hand shook. Mara pressed down once, not to stop it, to say she knew. Jesus' voice grew softer. "And when grief comes, do not let it make liars of you." Dagon looked at him sharply. Jesus' face was calm, too calm. "Why would you say that?" Mara's hand tightened. The room had changed again, but this time it was not danger from outside. It was the future leaning against the door. Jesus did not answer the question directly. He rarely did when the answer would arrive with blood soon enough. Instead, he said, "The feast is not kept by those who never mourn. It is kept by those who remember why the table was set." Dagon thought of Kana, jars filled to the top, wine arriving late, Mara's face when the room did not fall into shame. "You and your feasts," he said, because if he did not make the words crooked, he might break. Jesus smiled. "You keep attending them. Bad luck. Good hunger. That did it." Dagon laughed and Mara laughed too, and for a moment the room became young around them, not safe, not ignorant. Young, as if the future had not yet chosen its cruelest vocabulary. Jesus lifted their hands slightly. He blessed them. The words were simple. He named the God of their fathers. He spoke of bread and road, lamp and return. He gave them one another as task. When he released their hands, Dagon expected the world to feel different. It did not. The lamp still smoked. The bread remained covered. Men still listened at doors. Rome still owned too much of the city, but Mara's hand stayed in his. Small, considering the world. Enough, considering his. Jesus stepped back. "Now," he said, "someone should rescue those olives before Dagon accepts them as dowry." The room laughed. Dagon looked at the bowl. Too late, he said. Mara squeezed his hand. It hurt a little. He loved her for that later. Not yet, not in words. Words were dangerous and slow, but something in him, some road-worn animal that had slept with one eye open since smoke rose over Sepphoris, lowered